All right, so today I want to make another predictions video, and like I said, there's so much stuff going on nowadays that this is going to be a very important topic. Now, the prediction is going to be, or the predictions is going to be one of kind of two topics, and the first one being is what's going to happen in Canada over the next 10, 20 years. What is it, and what's going to basically play into that. So as far as my prediction for that goes, I don't think that Canada. I think that we're going to be under liberal rule for the next at least. I'd be shocked if they lose the next election, and maybe the next one. But like I say, I don't know because if Canada keeps going liberal, they're going to keep increasing immigration to the point where it basically guarantees a left-wing government. Like I say, literally guarantees it, and that's why Wexit is basically the only option. Like it literally is basically the only option. Like the other option is the Conservatives get their heads on straight, but I highly doubt that. I mean, I wouldn't completely write it off. I know a lot of people have completely wrote it off, but Canada is so desperate to get rid of at least anybody with their head on straight is so desperate to get rid of Trudeau that if a half decent conservative candidate can come along, I think you would probably have to support them in the hopes of that gives Wexit more ground to grow, or at the very least, maybe the PPC more ground to grow. But I'd prefer Wexit at this point, because the other problem with Wexit is that you can't just. I mean, I would still very much prefer it, but if you want it to be successful long term, you can't just leave Canada and be, there's there. We have to put you would have to put things in place to prevent against Wexit or an Alberta and Saskatchewan or whoever is in it from going down the same road of Canada. Because if we have the exact same system, then we would. If we have this stupid democracy system, I think you'd have to go towards an electoral college. You would have to pass a constitution with a true First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment equivalents, and other things. Those are just the first thing that came on the top of my head. I think you would have to, like I say, have to have an electoral college because then literally Edmonton and Calgary could do whatever they wanted. Um, you would have to have other things. I would say you would have to force governments to not run deficits, for the simple reason that one of the main reasons that Canada is in the mess that it's in is that governments have had the ability to run deficits. If the Trudeau government didn't have the ability to run deficits, I don't believe that we would be in nearly as much of a mess as we're currently in. So that is one thing that I don't think that under the Wexit platform that they mention, I would say governments are required to run at the very least balanced budgets, if not surpluses. Um, and like I said, I would also require other things like no welfare, no free healthcare. If you want to have somewhat of a public sector for as far as healthcare goes, whatever. But like I say, part of the reason why, or the main reason we're in this mess, is that people can vote themselves something for nothing. People can vote themselves, people who don't work can vote themselves, a very good amount of money to not work. People can vote themselves throughout their lifetime hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even millions of healthcare that they paid little to nothing into. So that is the main reason why Canada is in such the mess that it's in. And those are a few of the issues that Wexit doesn't really address, that, or maybe they do, just not to the extent that I prefer. Like I say, the whole point of Wexit, if it would be successful, is that you want to prevent against Canada going down the road of, or sorry, Wexit of going down the road of Canada currently. And a lot of people think that, oh, that would never happen. That would never happen. I guarantee you that it will. I guarantee you that it will. Because, like I say, the minority can, or sorry, it's basically mob rule under democracy. So you'd have to implement a system that prevents against that. But anyway, getting back to the whole predictions thing, I think Canada's going to continue to keep drifting more and more to the left. The Conservatives seem dead set on allowing that, which is not a good policy, is not something that's going to be successful long term for them. I think, like I said, Canada is going to keep voting liberal from here until eternity and until something major happens. So, what's going to happen to the West? Well, I think one of three things, or three main things at least, is going to happen. The first one being Wexit, which would be the best option. The next thing that could happen is the Wexit movement or the any opposition to leftism, to socialism. And like I say, don't tell me if for anyone on the left telling me we're not going socialist, because we're going socialist. Most of the people on the left, although they may not call themselves socialist, uh, they at least support the overwhelming majority of socialist ideas. So um, we're going socialist if unless something major changes. So like I say, the second thing that could happen is the people that are against the garbage, that the leftism that's going on throughout most of Canada, people that are more right leaning, especially in Alberta and Saskatchewan, they'll just be drowned out, and they'll be afraid to speak up, to do anything, and they'll just be forced into basically becoming oblivious, basically, or becoming um, like I say, like becoming to the point to where it's not even worth them fighting, and they'll just give in and let the government, have its way with you, basically, for the best way of putting it. The third thing that's going to happen is I think the thing that is probably most likely, although I don't hope that it happens, I think it is most likely because it's just basic human psychology, in that there's going to be violence. And like I say, I don't want there to be violence, but like I say, we're at a point to where um, the rest of Canada and the liberals, the socialists are going to continue to, for lack of a better word, oppress the Alberta, Saskatchewan, the more right-leaning people of the world, and eventually people are going to have enough, and eventually, like I say, there's going to be violence, there's going to be unrest, and I could see a full-on civil war happening basically between, and like I say, there may not be clear factions too. When people hear Civil War, they think of the one in the States where there was the Confederates and there was the Union. There may not be clear sides, but like I said, I think there'll be factions within factions. So that's basically my prediction. And like I said, I don't want it to happen, but I think it's inevitable. For the simple reason of the simple saying of those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution impossible. And the other thing that I think is going to help lead to this is that the far left is perfectly fine with, if I would say even supports, and it really likes using violence to get its way. And these are the more socialist communists of the world. Um, they really like using violence, and like I said, they've used not like there's no shortage of evidence to back that up, from the past. So like I said, I think there's going to be violence, and I think it's going to get very ugly very quick, and a lot of people are going to die or be hurt, and I don't know what's going to come of that. I really don't. My guess is I could see either side, quote unquote, winning, but like I say, I think there's going to be violence, and I think people are very oblivious to it because, like I said, there's other options too. Like I said, there is the option of the left and the socialists just become so powerful that enough people that are on the right or Brexit supporters are just going to stay silent and just let the left, you know, run all over them. And like I said, I think that's probably the next most likely, which I don't like to see. I just think that the Wexit movement, even if it does gain more ground, the East and the leftist media and the public schools and the universities will attack it from every possible way in every possible way they can, which is why I don't believe it will get enough steam. Again, I'm fully on board with it. Again, fully on board with it. I would vote for it in a heartbeat if I had the chance. Um, but I just don't think it's going to get enough steam. Like I say, I think that the political tensions are getting very heated. And like I say, the problem is that people refuse to just acknowledge their differences and go their separate ways. Like I said, the left is fully on board, like, you know, no fault divorce, meaning you don't even need a reason to get divorced. You can just leave, uproot your entire family, all this kind of stuff. But yet when it comes to this kind of stuff, that they're making it impossible for people who disagree with them to leave. And like I say, too, if the left actually believed in what they believed, they would support a Wexit movement. They would support it absolutely, but they don't. And the reason they don't is that they need the tax slaves to support their socialism. They know that people, the Alberta's the biggest net positive province, and has probably the most amount of net positive people in in Canada, and they need that money to support their socialism, to support their stupid leftist causes, and that's why they're doing what they do. So anyway, to sum it all up, like I say, there's more than likely my main prediction is there will be violence. Like I said, it comes down to the classic. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable, and I think that that's going to happen. Not that I support it, I just think that it's going to happen because like I said, the government is dead set on we're going socialist. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. We're going to ban guns. We're going to ban free speech. We're going to basically ban anyone questioning, ban and dox and shun you from society if you don't want socialism. And eventually, people are going to have enough of that. And I think that the other thing that I didn't mention that's going to make the problem even worse is that when someone who is so fed up with this finally does snap, or a group of people finally does snap and says enough is enough, the government is going to blame them. See, like, we've been telling you all along, these violent right wingers, these violent Wexit supporters. And sure enough, that'll just feed into the cycle, making the problem worse. That's what the government always does. And I think they hope for it too, because it's classic order out of chaos. Again, the government wants chaos. They want issues in society because they can step in and offer up their solutions. If society is running along just fine, the government doesn't have any reason to change things, which is why they want these massive problems in society, which is why they want unemployment, which is why they want this virus to be so much worse than it actually is. So they can come in and offer up their solutions, gain more power, enrich themselves, and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, that's the video for today. If you'd like to make sure to like and subscribe, check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. Again, I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last couple things, as always, check me out on Twitter and check me out on BitChute. Again, all the links are in the description, so just check them out there.